Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well today. It's Wednesday, May 27th, 2020, and it is a gorgeous day out there. I haven't been out there much, but I did poke my nose out there for a little bit, and it's quite warm, like a summer day. Not spring-like at all. I think I'm going to get out and get myself a run later this afternoon, enjoy the weather, get some exercise. And so I wanted to, as you saw in my email, great job reading my email and coming to the YouTube channel. Just quick reminders about your charts, right? You have those charts with all the different things in it that will certainly help guide your day and keep you productive. Home chores and exercise, writing an email, helping with food prep, meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, working on a grocery list, and then there's some web-based activities that will help you with your time and money skills, job skills, looking at various jobs and what they require of skills and what kind of education you need. You can go on ONET for that. Certainly you could search jobs on YouTube that you're interested in and watch some videos on those jobs to learn more about those jobs. So that worksheet is just a really nice resource for you to check in with every day. And if you stick to that on a daily basis, that will eat up and occupy a good 2 to 2.5 hours of your time each day. And certainly it has balance in it, right? There's some work in there, there's some learning in there, there's some exercise in there. There's really no fun in there, but I'm sure you guys are building fun into your schedules already. So that's what that's about. Just another reminder that we're getting close to the end. Today's May 27th, so we have the rest of this week. We have all of next week, which runs through June 5th. And then I believe that next week after that is going to be a kind of a catch-up week, a week where you won't get any new assignments, but it'll be an opportunity for you to catch up on the ones maybe that you haven't completed and you haven't done yet. Some of you guys are doing really well with the assignments, and in some cases you're going to have some catch-up work to do to get credit for the assignments. So you guys can do it. I know you can. You got the whole summer ahead of you that you won't have schoolwork for the most part. So buckling down this week and next week and the following week would be really good for you to complete the work that was sent to you. Again, these assignments are driven and created and driven by your goals, your money skills goals, your social skills goals, your vocational goals, your independent living skills goals. I look at your goals and I try to create these assignments to target those goals so that you can continue to work on making progress in those areas. So that's my spiel on that. So you got your chart, you're getting your assignments. Today I'm going to work with you a little bit on interview questions. And I know right before we left school in March, we had done an job interview. We did a vocational work week where each of you was able to get an interview in. Guys did a really nice job with getting dressed up and being prepared with your portfolios, your resume, your references, showing up for your appointment, meeting with the person, researching the company, which is a huge factor in going for an interview, and then obviously answering the interview questions. Just a couple of things before we get into interview questions. Just a few reminders that when you're answering interview questions, clearly we want to make sure that we're sitting up straight. So I'm sitting up straight now in my chair. My hands are typically on, you can't see it, but they're on the desk, kind of folded in front of me. Your portfolio should be out in front of you, so that if you need to reference it or give the interviewer something from your portfolio, like a resume, you could do that. You may have written down questions for the interviewer that might be something that you're open to as well in your portfolio, so that when he or she asks you the questions about, do you have any questions, you can refer to those questions right there. There's nothing wrong with reading the questions right from the piece of paper that you wrote them on. It shows that you're prepared and that you're thorough. You clearly want to make good eye contact with the interviewer. You want to try not to fidget and move around a lot. Your answers should be more than just one-word answers. Yes and no answers are not really effective answers in an interview. You can take a minute, a few seconds to think about your answer, but when they ask you questions, you really want to develop your answers and speak to the person about who you are through those answers, and not just give them short little 1, 2, 3-word answers. Have confidence, right? The interview is all about you and your fit for that company, your skills, what you bring to the table. And so you want to exude confidence. You want to have good eye contact, good posture, and you want to be confident. Speak confidently about yourself. One of the ways to do that is obviously be prepared. And so that's kind of what we're going to do today. Is we're going to go through a series of very common interview questions, and I'm going to read the question to you. You have these in your handouts. I attached these to the email that I sent you, so you have them. It kind of looks like this. You might recognize this one as the front page, and then there's a second page. Okay, and so there's 5 questions on the first page, and I think 4 questions on the second page. And what I'm going to do is, these are very common interview questions that you should be prepared to answer. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the questions now, and then I'm going to give you quick pointers on how to answer each question. And then the assignment that you're going to have, I'm going to share with you at the end of the activity. So the first question is a very general one that oftentimes gets asked in an interview, and it says, tell me about yourself. As you can see in the worksheet, this should be something along the lines of a 60-minute commercial. So you guys are familiar with TV, and in between episodes of your favorite show, there's a commercial. And usually commercials last anywhere between 30 seconds and a minute. Okay? Any longer than a minute, it's usually not very effective. So 60 seconds is really what you want to do, is really the time allotted to explain a little bit about yourself. And you would really want to focus on your strengths and on the things that are positive about you, and in particular, what kinds of skills you have that this job that you're going for would be connected to. Okay, you don't want to tell them about your Aunt Joe or your Uncle Paul that you went to the beach with 2 years ago, or your favorite vacation 4 years ago. This is really about kind of like where you are currently in your life. You're a student, or you just finished school. You have a strong interest in a particular area. Hopefully that area is connected to the job. Maybe some of your really good skills that you have. You're very good at doing a certain thing. And those skills obviously transfer to the job you're going for. And then sharing some personality traits. Maybe you're very thorough, or you're very conscientious. You're very organized. Those are things that you might want to add when they ask you about who you are, and they ask you to tell them about yourself. You certainly can tell them that if there's a little extra time and you haven't met the 1-minute requirement, pretty much, you're close. You want to add that you enjoy cars, or you enjoy videos and movies, or you enjoy spending time with family and friends. You can kind of add that in there, because that is important about a person, that you're well-rounded. But you really should focus mostly on what's related to your work skills, related to the job you're going for. Question 2 says, why do you want to work here? So this is an important question, and a lot about this question is you really need to know the company. So if you're going for a job at McDonald's and they say, why do you want to work here? You're probably going to have to answer the question in a way where it's kind of tied to what McDonald's does. What does McDonald's do? It serves food to people. It's in a customer service type of job. So an answer for that one might be that I applied for this job because I really want to serve my community. I really want to make sure. I've always liked interacting with customers and being able to serve my community. Or you might be going for a job at Dick's Sporting Goods, and they say, "Why do you want to work here?" And you can say, "Well, I've always had a love and an interest in sports. I've played sports my whole life. I have a pretty good understanding of the different sports and the different equipment that people use, and so I thought this would be a good fit for me to work here in your store." But this is a great opportunity for you to let them know a little bit about how much research you've done around that job, right? Knowing the store, knowing the company, and sharing why you want to work there is going to let them know that you did your homework about that company. Question number 3 says, "Why do you think I should hire you?" This is a great opportunity to mention, this is when you're going to you're not going to brag about yourself, but this is where you're going to really try to separate yourself from other people and say things about your skills or your experience. You've got 2 years of experience working in a certain particular job that connects to the job you're going for. So if you're interested in cars, and you've had a job for a year working in a company that does work on cars, you share that. I've had a year of working at this particular car place. We did a lot of brakes jobs, and we did tune-ups, and we pumped up tires, and we cleaned the exterior, and we cleaned the interior, and we changed fluids, and I did that for a full year, and that's what makes me a good candidate for this job. Or if you're going for a job where you're a secretary job, an office type job, and it requires organizational skills, you can say, "I think I'd be a great fit here because I'm very well organized. I make sure that I'm on time for things. I have planners. I set alerts for myself. I'm a very organized, detail-oriented person." And so that's a chance for you to share who you are with the interviewer. The 4th question is a tricky one. Okay, why did you leave your last job? You obviously want to be in a truthful answer. It has to be truthful. At no point in the interview do you ever want to lie about what happened, because these people can call your references. These people can do a background check on you and find out information. And the worst thing that could happen would be that, let's say you did have trouble at your job, and they let you go. They said, "It's just not going to work here." And you tell the person in the interview that you left the job because your mom or your dad got sick and you had to come home and take care of them. I don't know. That just could be some type of a reason. And that reason is really not true. That could come out in the interview. So you want to be honest with them. You want to be short on this one. You don't want to go into a big, long detail. But you want to keep the answers brief. If you had issues with your bosses or your coworkers, you could maybe say that there was some conflict, but you don't want to throw those people under the bus, and you don't want to blame them for it. Let's say you had a hard time working with a particular coworker, and and your boss approached you and said, "I think it's probably best that you move on to another position." And then they asked you in the interview, "Why did you leave?" And you could simply say, there was a conflict between me and another coworker. My coworker and I just didn't seem to get along. It was as much my fault as it was their fault. You can kind of take ownership of the relationship breakdown, and then just say, it was a situation where my workplace thought it would be a better idea if we didn't work together, and so I was moved along, and that's kind of why I'm here. These are difficult answers. You don't, it's obviously you don't want to say that, you're hard to deal with or you don't like people. You want to try to keep it as positive as you can, but being as truthful as you can. So hopefully you left your last job because you wanted to leave your last job. Hopefully you left your last job because you wanted a better opportunity. And certainly you could say that. If you left your last job because you had done all you could there and you found a better opportunity and you wanted to improve your career, then that's a great answer. It does get tricky when you're in a situation that has some negativity to it. You got to word it in the right way. Number 5 says, what is your biggest strength? Okay. And so actually the next 2 questions are really important. What is your biggest strength? And then what are your biggest weaknesses? These are opportunities for you to, again, tell them about how you operate? What makes you good at what you do? Are you well organized? Are you conscientious? Are you dependable? Are you willing to do the extra work if it's necessary? Are you willing to come in and do extra shifts at times when most people wouldn't? If those are characteristics of you, then you'd want to say that. Those are your strengths. When it comes to your weaknesses, and actually people have a hard time with this. Sometimes they have a hard time with strengths too, because we don't really want to brag about ourselves, but that's an opportunity to really think about what we do well and share it. It's hard. But weaknesses can also be tough because it requires us to look at ourselves. And again, this goes back to our self-advocacy, self-determination activities a few weeks ago, where I challenged you guys to really take a look at who you are and what makes you operate and tick a certain way, and how you learn best, how you work best. What kinds of things make you who you are? And then these questions here tap right into that. Knowing your weaknesses is really knowing you as a person. And so if you're someone who's easily distracted, or you're someone who has a hard time sitting down, you like to be moving and you like to be out and about, that's something that you could share. You can say, I'm an active person. I'm not typically someone who's productive when I sit down. I like to be doing a job that's moving and up and around and talking to people and doing different things. And hopefully the job you're going for has that. Hopefully you're not applying for a job where you're going to be sitting for 7 hours a day, so you'd know that already. But, your weakness could be that you just have a hard time sometimes sitting down and that you need to be moving. Or you're not very well organized, although, and this is where you turn it into a positive, you say, I have a planner on my phone that keeps me on track. It tells me when my appointments. It gives me my times when I'm supposed to be at work. So even though I'm not very well organized, I've learned strategies to help me stay organized. Anything that you don't do well, it's nice if you can turn it into a positive by saying you're willing to learn how to get better at that skill. Okay? Number 6. Seven, excuse me. What would you like to do? What would you like to be doing in 5 years? Okay? This is a great opportunity to say something like, I'd like to continue to maintain this position or a position similar to this, but I'd like to work my way up the ladder to a higher position in the company. And then you could even ask a question at that point about, are there positions that I could evolve to higher than this? So if I'm working in a warehouse and you're unloading trucks and you're shelving products and you're scanning in items, you could say that I'm really interested in this job and I'd like to work in this job for the future, but eventually down the road, maybe I could advance to a shift manager of some kind, or maybe a store manager at some point. I really enjoy this kind of an environment and I'd love to stay in it and make a career of it. So in 5 years, I could maybe see myself being in a management position. So that's kind of, you're going to have to think ahead. Most of you guys are in your 18, 19, 20-year-old range. So we're talking about 23, 24, 25 years old. Where do you see yourself at that time? This wouldn't be a time to say, things about, being married and having kids and having an apartment or a house and those kind of things. You want to kind of keep it to your career and to your work. What would you like to be doing in your work? It might even involve going back to school. You could say, I'd love to start working here as an entry-level warehouse worker or a landscaper or car technician, but I'm also willing to go to school and learn more to get more schooling to advance to get another position at a higher level. Question 8 says, have you ever been fired or asked to leave a job? Okay, if you've ever been fired or asked to leave a job, it's certainly going to be uncovered at some point by this interviewer when they check your references. Okay, so your resume has all of your work experiences on it, and if at any point you were fired for something, you have to disclose that you work there. The interviewer is going to say to you, or look at it and say, hey, how come you left your job on this date here? You only work here 3 months. Can you tell me what happened at the end? Or they're going to find out when they call your references. Now, again, would you leave a reference? Would you put someone as a reference that fired you? You probably wouldn't do that. You want to put people on these references that are going to speak well of you. But if you don't have a lot of experience and that's your last resort, you have to put that on there. Again, you don't want to blame anybody. You don't want to be really negative. You don't want to say, hey, that place was a terrible place to work. The managers were unsympathetic and terrible. They didn't communicate. The more negative you are, the more they could see you as a possible negative person in their work environment. What you could, if you did get fired from the job, you could simply say, you know what, things didn't work out at the job. I didn't perform my job to the level that I should have. The manager thought that it would be best if I left. I look back on that experience now as a learning experience and realize that I had some responsibility in all that. I definitely didn't do a great job at that job, and I probably deserve to be fired. So you're taking a negative again and kind of turning it into a positive, in that you're being accountable for who you are and that you did something wrong. And then finally, when would you be willing to start? So you always have to know when you're going for an interview. Some interviews, in the interview, they might offer you the job. Some interviews might say, well, we're going to interview 3 or 4 other people and we'll get back to you by the end of the week. And then some interviews, believe it or not, have second and third interviews. That's probably not going to happen in your cases at this stage of your career, but it is possible down the road if you're going for a management position. If there's 10 candidates, you're one of them, you might have to come back for a second interview. They're going to go from 10 to maybe 5 and then down to 2 or 3. You might have to go for a couple of interviews to keep separating yourself from the competition. But either way, when you go to an interview, you should be prepared with some type of a start date in mind. And always remember, if you have a job, it's common courtesy, it's workplace courtesy, I guess you could call it, is to give the place at least 2 weeks notice if you're leaving. So you could be sitting in that chair interviewing and you already have a job working somewhere else. You've got to understand that you still owe that first company 2 weeks to work so that they can find a replacement for you before you can start in this job. If you have no job and you're unemployed and you can start working ASAP as soon as possible, then you can tell them that. But if you have other commitments related to work, or some other, other extenuating commitment that would prevent you from working as soon as possible, then you should let them know what that is and when you can start. Most people understand that you're not going to be able to start right away. It's great when you can, but they understand that you're going to have to give a few weeks' notice. So those are the 9 questions, and those are the ways in which I think it's best to answer those questions. So what I'd like you to do, your assignment now, is to pick 5 of those questions. There's 9 questions total. You get to pick 5. Okay, so what I want you to do is you're going to take a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper. You're going to write, basically number your paper 1 to 5, but between each number you're going to leave a big space, right? So you're going to write number 1 up on the top, then you're going to skip down number 2, then number 3, and then maybe on the back do 4 and 5. And you're going to leave a big chunk of space. You're going to write down the question. Okay, so number 1 says, tell me about yourself. You're going to write that next to number 1. Tell me about yourself. And what you're going to do is you're going to write down what you would say. You're going to write down the answer that you would say in a real interview. Okay, so you're going to have to, practice this a little bit. Maybe you might want to practice it verbally by yourself or with a parent or something. But I want you to write down your answers as if it were an interview, and then take a picture of it and send it back to me. That's going to be your assignment so that I can see how you would answer each of these questions. You get to pick the 5. I'm not telling you which questions to pick, all right? But you have to write down your answers. And like I said, you can write down the answers, you can practice them out loud with your family, or you can practice them out loud with your family, see how they go, and then write it down on the piece of paper. It's your choice. Again, you want to keep it fairly brief, but not too brief, right? We're talking about 30 to 60 seconds in a lot of cases for most of these questions. Some of them might go a little longer if you're talking about something that's a little bit more elaborate. So that is your assignment, to take this worksheet as your guide, use 5 of the questions that are here, and come up with 5 answers to those questions. All right? So I'm glad you stuck with it today and watched this video on job interview questions. These are really important questions to answer and come up with answers for as you guys prepare for interviews. And then what we're going to do is you're going to send me the answers on a piece of paper. Take a picture and send them to me. But we're also going to go over them the next time we have a chance to chat on the phone. Okay, hopefully Friday I can connect with each of you and we can have a chat on the phone. And in that conversation, I'm going to have a conversation with you about these questions. And you're going to share with me what you did for answers and how you answered these questions. So you'll want to have this available to you, when we meet on Friday by phone. Okay, so it's kind of a 2-part assignment, 3-part assignment. Watch the video, which you just did, answer the questions, and then review them with me on Friday. Okay? All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great day.